The work is shaping nicely. I asked my cousin of Germany for a month and I believe a fortnight will be enough for my purpose. And what I like about it is that I shall start operations with the scoundrels who made me take a header in the Seine. My poor old Gourel, I shall revenge you at last. And high time too." At 12 o'clock on Saturday he went to the Restaurant Buffalo, a little low-ceilinged room to which bricklayers and cab drivers resorted for their midday meal. Some one came and sat down beside him. "It's done, governor." "Ah, is it you, Doudeville? That's right. I'm dying to know. Have you the particulars? The birth certificate? Quick, tell me." "Well, it's like this: Altenheim's father and mother died abroad." "Never mind about them." "They left 3 children." "3?" "Yes. The eldest would have been 30 years old by now. His name was Raoul de Malreich." "That's our man, Altenheim. Next?" "The youngest of the children was a girl, Isilda. The register has an entry, in fresh ink, 'Deceased.'" "Isilda, Isilda," repeated Lupin. "That's just what I thought. Isilda was Altenheim's sister. I saw a look in her face which I seemed to recognize. So that was the link between them. But the other, the third child, or rather the second?" "A son. He would be 26 by now." "His name?" "Louis de Malreich." Lupin gave a little start: "That's it! Louis de Malreich! The initials L.M.! The awful and terrifying signature! The murderer's name is Louis de Malreich! He was the brother of Altenheim and the brother of Isilda and he killed both of them for fear of what they might reveal." Lupin sat long, silent and gloomy under the obsession, no doubt, of the mysterious being. Doudeville objected: "What had he to fear from his sister Isilda? She was mad, they told me." "Mad, yes, but capable of remembering certain details of her childhood. She must have recognized the brother with whom she grew up; and that recollection cost her her life." And he added, "Mad? But all those people were mad. The mother was mad, the father a dipsomaniac, Altenheim a regular brute beast, Isilda a poor innocent. As for the other, the murderer, he is the monster, the crazy lunatic." "Crazy? Do you think so, governor?" "Yes, crazy. With flashes of genius, of devilish cunning and intuition, but a cracked-brained fool, a madman, like all that Malreich family. Only madmen kill, and especially madmen of his stamp. For, after all...." He interrupted himself; and his face underwent so great a change that Doudeville was struck by it. "What's the matter, governor?" "Look." A man had entered and hung his hat, a soft, black felt hat, on a peg. He sat down at a little table, examined the bill of fare which a waiter brought him, gave his order and waited motionless, with his body stiff and erect and his 2 arms crossed over the table-cloth. And Lupin saw him, full face. He had a lean, hard visage, absolutely smooth and pierced with 2 sockets, in the depths of which appeared a pair of steel gray eyes. The skin seemed stretched from bone to bone, like a sheet of parchment, so stiff and so thick that not a hair could have penetrated through it. And the face was dismal and dull. No expression enlivened it, no thought seemed to abide under that ivory forehead; and the eyelids, entirely devoid of lashes, never flickered, which gave the eyes the fixed look of the eyes in a statue. Lupin beckoned to one of the waiters: "Who is that gentleman?" "The one eating his lunch over there?" "Yes." "He is a customer. He comes here 2 or 3 times a week." "Can you tell me his name?" "Why, yes, Leon Massier." "Oh!" blurted Lupin, very excitedly. "L.M., the same 2 letters. Could it be Louis de Malreich?" He watched him eagerly. Indeed, the man's appearance agreed with Lupin's conjectures, with what he knew of him and of his hideous mode of existence. But what puzzled him was that look of death about him. Where he anticipated life and fire, where he would have expected to find the torment, the disorder, the violent facial distortion of the great accursed, he beheld sheer impassiveness. He asked the waiter: "What does he do?" "I really can't say. He is a rum cove. He's always quite alone. He never talks to anybody. We here don't even know the sound of his voice. He points his finger at the dishes on the bill of fare which he wants. He has finished in 20 minutes. Then he pays and goes." "And he comes back again?" "Every 3 or 4 days. He's not regular." "It's he, it cannot be any one else," said Lupin to himself. "It's Malreich. There he is, breathing, at 4 steps from me. There are the hands that kill. There is the brain that gloats upon the smell of blood. There is the monster, the vampire." And yet, was it possible? Lupin had ended by looking upon Malreich as so fantastic a being that he was disconcerted at seeing him in the flesh, coming, going, moving. He could not explain to himself how the man could eat bread and meat like other men, drink beer like any one else, this man whom he had pictured as a foul beast, feeding on live flesh and sucking the blood of his victims. "Come away, Doudeville." "What's the matter with you, governor? You look quite white." "I want air. Come out." Outside, he drew a deep breath, wiped the perspiration from his forehead and muttered: "That's better. I was stifling." And, mastering himself, he added: "Now we must play our game cautiously and not lose sight of his tracks." "Hadn't we better separate, governor? Our man saw us together. He will take less notice of us singly." "Did he see us?" said Lupin, pensively. "He seems to me to see nothing, to hear nothing and to look at nothing. What a bewildering specimen!" And, in fact, 10 minutes later, Leon Massier appeared and walked away, without even looking to see if he was followed. He had lit a cigarette and smoked, with one of his hands behind his back, strolling along like a saunterer enjoying the sunshine and the fresh air and never suspecting that his movements could possibly be watched. He passed through the toll gates, skirted the fortifications, went out again through the Porte Champeret and retraced his steps along the Route de la Revolte. Would he enter the buildings at No. 3? Lupin eagerly hoped that he would, for that would have been a certain proof of his complicity with the Altenheim gang. But the man turned round and made for the Rue de l'Esemant, which he followed until he passed the Velodrome Buffalo. On the left, opposite the cycling track, between the public tennis court and the booths that line the Rue d'Alesement, stood a small detached villa, surrounded by a scanty garden. Leon Massier stopped, took out his keys, opened first the gate of the garden and then the door of the house and disappeared. Lupin crept forward cautiously. He at once noticed that the block in the Rue de la Revolte stretched back as far as the garden wall. Coming still nearer, he saw that the wall was very high and that a coach-house rested against it at the bottom of the garden. The position of the buildings was such as to give him the certainty that his coach-house stood back to back with the coach-house in the inner yard of No. 3, which served as a lumber room for the broker. Leon Massier, therefore, occupied a house adjoining the place in which the 7 members of the Altenheim gang held their meetings. Consequently, Leon Massier was, in point of fact, the supreme leader who commanded that gang, and there was evidently a passage between the 2 coach-houses through which he communicated with his followers. "I was right," said Lupin. "Leon Massier and Louis de Malreich are one and the same man. The situation is much simpler than it was." "There is no doubt about that," said Doudeville, "and everything will be settled in a few days." "That is to say, I shall have been stabbed in the throat." "What are you saying, governor? There's an idea!" "Pooh, who knows? I have always had a presentiment that that monster would bring me ill luck." Thenceforth it became a matter of watching Malreich's life in such a way that none of his movements went unobserved. This life was of the oddest, if one could believe the people of the neighbourhood whom Doudeville questioned. The bloke from the villa, as they called him, had been living there for a few months only. He saw and received nobody. He was not known to keep a servant of any kind; and the windows, though they were left wide open, even at night, always remained dark and were never lit with the glow of a lamp or candle. Moreover, Leon Massier most often went out at the close of day and did not come in again until very late, at dawn, said people who had come upon him at sunrise. "And does any one know what he does?" asked Lupin of his companion, when they next met. "No, he leads an absolutely irregular existence. He sometimes disappears for several days together, or rather, he remains indoors. When all is said, nobody knows anything." "Well, we shall know, and that soon." He was wrong. After a week of continuous efforts and investigations, he had learnt no more than before about that strange individual. The extraordinary thing that constantly happened was this, that suddenly, while Lupin was following him, the man, who was ambling with short steps along the streets, without ever turning round or ever stopping, the man would vanish as if by a miracle. True, he sometimes went through houses with 2 entrances, but at other times he seemed to fade away in the midst of the crowd, like a ghost. And Lupin was left behind, petrified, astounded, filled with rage and confusion. He at once hurried to the Rue d'Alesement and stood on guard outside the villa. Minutes followed upon minutes, half hour upon half hour. A part of the night slipped away. Then, suddenly, the mysterious man hove in sight. What could he have been doing? "An express message for you, governor," said Doudeville, at 8 o'clock one evening, as he joined him in the Rue d'Alesment. Lupin opened the envelope. Mrs. Kesselbach implored him to come to her aid.